Ridley Scott joins us. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
This is Simon in one studio. Mark is in Southampton.
Sunny Southampton, as we like to refer to it.
In sunny Southampton. And Ridley, you're in our radio car, which you've just described as...
I feel I'm like on a police surveillance thing. I feel like I'm Gene Hackman in a film called, what's it called? The Conversation. Yeah, I'm
right.
Staring at the Brasserie Boulevard. Somebody's inside there. They think I'm surveying them.
Well, it's very good to have a few minutes with you. Thank you very much, Steve, for your time. Explain. We had Charlize Theron on the programme last week, and she obviously couldn't tell us. She was talking about Snow White, and she obviously couldn't tell us very much about Prometheus. We've been waiting for you to explain all. What can you tell us, please, about the world of Prometheus that you're taking us to in this extraordinary film?
Well, Prometheus evolved from... I made a film almost 30 years ago called Alien, and
Yes.
At the end of having finished Alien, I was always concerned about the fact that in the story, Tom Skerritt had brought up a question and said, who was this creature, how did he die, and what was this device he was sitting in? Well, we never answered the question during the actual film itself. I always was concerned about it would raise its head and people would say, what was that? They never did. And then I watched 2, 3, and 4 get made. Then I watched, I think I really couldn't really watch, was it Alien vs. Predator? But it was never raised. And so I brought it up about 4 years ago to Fox, Tom Rothman. Said, you know what, we can open the door here and have a whole new universe which will give life to this genre. Although I think the Alien itself is now dead and gone, wrung dry, I think we can open up to a new universe, new doors, new experiences, and specifically asking some more significant questions which occur in the film.
Now as people are spooling back Alien in their minds to this character that you're talking about, there's a mysterious being, this giant fossilized creature, and it became known as Space Jockey. But could you just describe him so that people can picture him?
He was perceived, the giant was perceived as skeletal, and I kept staring at the skeleton, which was kind of a wonderful drawing by H.R. Giger. And then I thought 26 years on, I thought, what if it's not a skeleton, but because we only see it as a skeleton because of our own, the way we see things and our own, if you like, indoctrination. And then I thought, what happens if it's another form of protection or a suit? If it's a suit, then what's inside the suit?
Ridley, can I ask you a very specific question? The action of this film takes place on LV-223 and not LV-426. Am I right in assuming that they are not the same planet? It's not that 223 is renamed as 426?
Yeah, it's not the same planet at all, no.
Okay, so...
If there was a sequel to this, which there might be if the film is successful, there'll be 2 more of these before you even get to Alien 1.
So when people have imagined, perhaps wrongly, that Prometheus is an Alien sequel, it only in as much as it occupies the world before we get to Alien. It's in the same constellation, the same galaxy, but it is not a direct prequel.
Absolutely not.
Are you surprised that all those sequels that came afterwards didn't touch on this character, on this space jockey, which is where you're basing it?
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm amazed, but I realised at a certain point I better keep quiet about it because they never asked me back. So I think so I went back to them thinking, okay, dude, here's a new idea.
Well, didn't Fox...
This is mine.
Didn't Fox in the original meetings ask you to cut back on the budget and remove the character of the space jockey because they said, well, you know, there's nothing happens to that character, we don't know much about him, can't you lose him?
In the original?
Yeah.
You know, you're right, that rings a bell. I think he was quite expensive, and the Alien at that point was a hideous $8.2 million all in, and which you can better get some Stars trailer for that today. But I think that was raised, but we'd done the drawings, and Alan Ladd, who was the studio head at that point, was fairly courageous, and he just went along with it.
Can I ask you something about the character that Michael Fassbender plays, who is an android named David? Obviously, David is a functioning, sentient being, and a lot of the film sort of asks a question about whether or not David has a consciousness, whether or not David has a soul. And it seemed to me that this related to two films. One of them, Blade Runner, which is very centrally about whether or not a replicant has a soul, but also the fact that this character is called David seemed to me to be a nod to Kubrick's AI. Was that in your mind at all, in that character of David?
The whole point of the story in Blade Runner is that it proves he actually has very much a soul, to the extent of having a soul that can deal with forgiveness and letting his hunter off the hook, and thereby demonstrating, a heart, and also that marvelous final description of saying, "I've seen things that you will never see."
Yeah.
And having mentioned Fassbender, can we mention Noomi Rapace? You're often credited with bringing the female action heroine to the big screen. Sigourney Weaver wasn't fantastically known in Hollywood. Why did at the time? Why did you choose Noomi Rapace to take the lead?
Well, Sigourney hadn't done anything in Hollywood. She was completely unknown, hadn't done a film, and I had to do the same thing. I had to, say, listen, this is the gal. I think she's terrific. And Laddie said, I'm not sure, you got to test her. And pretty well the same thing happened with Noomi. I'd seen, the difference was Noomi had done some significant films in Scandinavia and also some significant theatre, i.e. Medea and things like that, heavy theatre. And then I saw this film almost by accident called Dragon Tattoo, the original, because I was looking at the director's work, the Scandinavian director's work, and I was absolutely knocked out by this little street, tough person who was a central character. And within about, I was so curious, I discovered that she was actually going to be in Los Angeles, so I met her like 6 weeks later, and in walked this rather beautiful, very smart woman, who actually I realized I was dealing with a real actress, and that was where it started to evolve. And within about a month I said, listen, I would like you to do Alien, but they're going to have to ask you to do a screen test, etc. And so we went through that convention of doing a screen test.
Can I ask you about the 3D? Mark is a noted and occasionally boring skeptic when it comes to three-dimensional films. What convinced you to do this in 3D?
It felt to me like a no-brainer. 3D kind of would evolve around anything that is particularly not picture reliant, but picture enhancement. Anything that's going to be potentially a visual movie, such as a Western with the great outdoors or great landscapes, or certainly 3D. It's going to lend itself to science fiction. Sorry. It's going to lend itself to 3D. So it seemed to be a kind of no-brainer. And I'm, visual anyway. That's where I really come from. And the idea of doing 3D to me didn't present any challenge whatsoever, other than enhancement.
Do you see it as the future for other films that you'll make?
Maybe, yeah.
But you nearly said no.
It's horses for courses. If I do Blade Runner, the sequel, which might happen, I'll definitely consider 3D. The point is, this Alien, this present version is going out. This Prometheus is going out on 3D majority, 2D about a third of that, and then also on top of that IMAX.
Yeah.
So in all, I think you roughly run 14,000 theatres. So you've got all your choices, and each one. 2D is actually quite beautiful.
I agree. Ridley, if the Blade Runner sequel does happen, will there be any characters from the original Blade Runner edit? Obviously, Roy Batty has died at the end, but Deckard, as we know, as you declared, is an android. Is there any chance that we'll see any of those characters back again, or is it an entirely new story?
Pretty well an entirely new story, but that said, it's never too late or never too soon. I don't really know yet. We're penning it now. It's kind of evolving now.
Would you say, Ridley, that Prometheus feels like the most anticipated film you've ever done? It's certainly the most anticipated film of the year. The interest from our listeners is just astonishing, and obviously you'll have felt that as well. But in terms of all the movies you've been involved with, can you remember something that's been looked forward to as much as this?
I think I agree with you. No, I don't think. I think this is it. This has been really very much anticipated.
So presumably you would think, well, I mean, all the indications are that this is going to be absolutely huge, that those two other movies that you need to do before we get to Alien, that's going to have to be quite likely, hasn't it?
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, particularly as I've really enjoyed doing it, you know. I've enjoyed the whole evolution of where it comes, how it evolved and where it went to and where we got to now and where it could go to. That's very interesting.
Ridley, can I just ask you finally, in terms of the movies that you've made before, many of them have existed in several different versions. There's 2 different versions of Alien, obviously Blade Runner, the director's cut, the final cut, the original cut. As far as Prometheus is concerned, is it exactly the film you want it to be? And is there any possibility that at some point you'll do a Kingdom of Heaven and go back and put other stuff in it? Or is that it? Is that finished? Is it done?
No, there's every possibility. Never say never.
Are there things
Mummy used to tell me not to anticipate anything or predict anything.
So are there things that you want in there? Are there things that you'd love to be able to put in there that aren't in there at the moment?
Yeah, oh sure. If you're getting to the next phase, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Ridley Scott, we appreciate you speaking to us. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and thank you for bearing up in Ice Station Zebra there in the radio car.
Thank you. Okay, over and out. Roger that.